And today's a great Sunday. We are concluding a 4-part series we started at the beginning of the month called Squad Goals. And what we've been discovering together over these weeks is how we can have better horizontal relationships. You've got a squad, you've got people in your life that hopefully you care about and they care about you. And we want to see those groups and those circles increase and get better. And so we start at the beginning of the month looking at what Amy shared with us about loving one another. And we've been looking at all these one another's that Jesus and Peter and other New Testament authors write about, carry one another. And today we're going to look at one more together. But before we get there, I want to share with you, okay, there's a little insecurity and security for me, but I love being brought into something. I love it. I love being brought. I love it when I'm going through my business and I get a text from a friend that just says, hey, how are you doing today? There's something inside of Keith that says, wow, look at that. They thought about me. That's real cute, real nice of them to say, how are you doing today, Keith? Or you ever get an invite or even Facebook event invite or letter in the mail, right? Like RSVP for this. There's something special about that moment and that feeling that says, wow, look at this person taking the time to consider me and bring me in to what they're going through. And I got to believe that in this space right now, in our 9:30, that people, we've gathered in this space, and we all kind of love that. And I know for some of us here, it's like, no, Pastor Keith, I love the fortress of solitude. Okay, that's where I live. I don't want anyone to talk to me. I get mad when they text me. You ever get mad when you get thrown into a text group? It's like, how do I get out of this thing? Now I've got to do not disturb mode. And on Facebook, it's like you just have to show the group like Keith left the group. Like, what does that mean for you guys? I'm just checking out. So I know that there's this other leaning that says, no, you know what? I prefer the fortress of solitude over the environment of all the people. And yet, I think all of us, we can land in a space where we say, okay, but there's still this thing in us that says, I like to be included. You know, as introvert as we might be, as much as isolation rejuvenates us, there's something that goes off that says, that was kind of them to bring me in. They didn't have to, but they thought of me. They didn't need to, but they did it anyway. And we say it often here in this space that the reason why we love horizontal relationships and the reason why there's something that feels good when someone includes you is because you were made in the image of God. We don't believe that you are an accident, you're here by mistake. No matter what's been said over you by other people or what you believe about yourself, we believe God made you in His image. And one of the qualities that God has is to be relational. And so when God first made humanity, He said it's not good for you to be alone. It's not good for you to go through this life without other people in your life. And that's why this switch goes off in Keith that says, that was great that they texted me, that they brought me in. And today, I want to talk about that bringing people in. I want to talk about a word we don't use too often, and it's the word hospitality. That's a $5 word, right? Is that the phrase? It's a $10 word. It's a lot of money for that word. We don't use the word hospitality too often in our culture. I haven't said, hey, you're such a hospitable person. Thank you for thinking of me lately. And yet we probably have this idea, when you hear hospitality, there's this image that comes up in your mind. And maybe you start thinking of the most extroverted, party-planning person. I mean, they invite you over, and the tablecloths are good, and the seam is right down the middle of the table, and they know the cup goes to the right, not the left, and the fork's on the inside, and the knife is where it needs to. Like, you know those people in your life, you say, man, they are very hospitable. They just know how to open their home. They know how to treat guests right, and that's great for them, but thank God that He made you that way, because that's not who I am. Because we have this idea of what hospitality is. We think about parties and events and experiences. So I'd like to redefine hospitality for us today, because I think it's bigger than that. I think it goes beyond that. And so when we consider hospitality, I think a good working definition is simply this: to bring people who are out in. If you're going to be hospitable, I think the best working definition is, hey, we want to bring people who are outside into the experience, into the moment. And so when you invite someone to be a part of a text group, you are being hospitable because they were once outside and now they're inside. When you host a party, we can go there and you bring people in. When you engage in conversation, when you acknowledge someone who's kind of on the outs and suddenly you pay attention to them, well, you are being hospitable. You are bringing them in. Now, if we were to just leave hospitality for the party planners, for the extroverts, For those who live far away from the fortress of solitude and they are always engaging with people and they know where the cup goes, then that kind of limits who can be hospitable and who can't be. It gives us an out. That's a good thing, right? Hey, I'm not there, but thank God they're there, and thank God you talk to them because I have no reason to talk to them. And so we can give ourselves outs when it comes to hospitality. And as I considered my own life, and as much as I love being brought in, and I love the feeling of someone texting me and inviting me, I looked and I said, but how often, Keith, do you do that? How often do I go out of my way to make sure those who are out are brought in? And truth moment for the pastor with the mic, it's hard. It's challenging to say, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to engage with you now. I'm going to see how you're doing. I'm going to text you. It's not easy. And I said, what is it? Are there reasons why I am so I push against hospitality? And I boiled it down to these two phrases, and it's this: rundown people and rundown places. Why is Keith not good at practicing hospitality? Because of rundown people and rundown places. So I would love to play a game. Would you like to play a game with me? I have the mic. You have to say yes, okay? Now, you don't have to be a Christian to play this game. This is kind of an all-skate. Everyone gets in, and it's very simple. And as we play this game and raise our hands and participate, I want you to look around the room because misery loves company. And we're going to feel real good about ourselves today at church. So this is easy, okay? Think, in the past week, have you at one point thought or said, I'm tired? There it is, okay? You just look around for everyone's hands. Here I am, I'm tired. Good, here's another one, okay? Have you in the past week thought or said, I'm so busy. I just got a lot going on. Okay, a couple hands. Some of us are there. Okay, now one more. This one you probably thought, you may have said it. If you did, good for you. That's just really courageous. But have you thought or said, I just wish they would leave me alone? There it is. Okay, we got some hands going straight up. Now, hopefully you didn't do colorful words in there too. However you said it. But I just wish whoever they is, would leave me alone. Hopefully it wasn't your spouse. Hopefully it wasn't people that are right in your home, but it could have been, all right? But your coworker or friends or whatever it looked like. I bring that up because as you consider, we are tired, we are busy, we really don't like it when people connect with us. And now we're talking about hospitality, bringing outsiders in. How are we supposed to bring people in to an experience or to talk to them or connect with them when we're tired, busy, and we don't like connecting with people? So there's this tension there. It says, how am I supposed to do that? I mean, think about it. You get home from a long day at work. Do you want people coming over and eating your ice cream? The answer is no. That's your ice cream. That's my ice cream stash. And it's like you think, like, I don't want them to come over, and now we got to engage with them, and now we got to talk with them, and I just want to put my feet up. I just want to relax. And we have these feelings inside of us. So how am I supposed to be hospitable? Is the answer get more sleep? Is the answer find a different job that will help me just kind of engage? What is the answer there? Or is the answer just, you know what? Those people are hospitable. I'm not hospitable. Those people can worry about it. I can't worry about it. What's the answer there? And the second is this: rundown places. Now, I love Fixer Upper. Amen. I love it. I will watch the same episode of Fixer Upper over and over, even though I know how it ends up. I just love seeing the transformation. I love getting ideas for the home. But here's the other side of Fixer Upper world. I look at what's on the screen. I look at what's on articles online of homes, and I think my home just does not look like that. My home is not going to be featured in a magazine anytime soon. I've been trying 6 years to grow grass at my house. 6 years. I've got plenty of dirt. I got some rocks that my kids play with now and fall on. But it's just, I don't have these things. And when I look at other homes and other images, then I start thinking about hospitality, because a lot of times we think, well, hospitality is bring people over. So I can't bring people over. This place is run down. It's like George Bailey. You've seen this in Wonderful Life? Like when before the transformation, just hates the house. Like everything's just rickety and it's falling apart. Because we give ourselves these outs and we say, I can't be hospitable. I'm run down. This place is run down. And my home's just not ready for people to come over. You know the difference between like a ready home for guests and a not ready home for guests? Right? Like you just put all the toys and the kids in the back room. Like, nope, we don't have any kids. We don't have any toys here. Just come on over. It's always clean. And so there's this tension there of how can I be hospitable? How can I bring the out in when I feel run down and the place is run down? Now, I've been speaking for about 10 minutes on hospitality. And I got to think that there's something that comes up in us that says, Pastor Keith, could we talk about a more relevant topic than hospitality? Come on, think about it. There's so many things we can look at that God has for us. You had a Monday through Saturday. Why are we spending time on hospitality? I mean, just put together a hospitality ministry. Just let them take care of these things. And that could work. That might be someday. But why should we today consider being hospitable to the people around us? Here's why. Because hospitality matters to God. It matters to God. If God had a core value list, hospitality makes the list. See, thousands of years ago, let me give you a little history. Don't fall asleep on me here. There was a man named Abraham that God said, through you, I'm going to build a nation. Through you, the world will be blessed. We believe through Abraham came the Israelites, the Jewish people. And hundreds of years later, the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, and maybe you saw a portrayal of Moses coming, and there were frogs, and there were plagues, and they crossed the Red Sea, and now they're free from Egyptian control, and God wants to set them up to live their best lives. And so to do that, he gives them commands. These weren't things to hurt them, they were things to help them. They were good things. Don't lie to each other. Don't kill one another. Don't steal from each other. And so God, in his giving them commands, implements hospitality. Because it was a value. See, in Deuteronomy 10:19, we read, and you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. God's saying, all those people who are not like you, you are to love them. You are to bring them in. And he doesn't just throw like this sentence at them and says, figure it out. It's so cool. God teaches the people of Israel how to implement this core value of hospitality. Here's some examples. If you were to enter into a Jewish city and you were visiting there, you would go right to the center square, and the Jewish people were required by the law that God gave to make sure you didn't spend the nights in the streets. That was their homeless ministry. They said, no, you're not going to sleep in the middle of the square. We are going to bring you into our homes, and we are going to feed you and take care of you. It was built into their society. Here's another one. They were told you can't harvest your fields all the way to the edges. You need to leave the edges for the widows, for the orphans, for those who do not have, so that they could be brought in. And anytime they celebrated a religious festival, a party, God said, anyone who's around you, even if they're not like you, they get an invite to the party. Okay, I know they're not part of your culture. I know they're a different race. I get that. But guess what? You're going to bring them in. They're on the outside. They're going to be on the inside. This is what God did through the people of Israel thousands of years ago. To which we could say, well, thank God, I guess I'm not Jewish, and it's 2018. Where's the application? It's not an out. Stay with me. Because when Jesus shows up, Jesus starts talking about hospitality, and he does more than talk about it. We're going to see it in a minute. And Peter, who knew Jesus, who was instrumental in starting the first church, he talks about hospitality. And Paul, the first church planter, talks about hospitality. And James, the brother of Jesus, talks about hospitality. And yet they don't go on about napkins and tablecloths and entertaining guests. There is a bigger definition they're working with. It's to bring those who are out in. Look what Peter writes. Show hospitality to one another. Unfortunately, he didn't stop there. He put the last two words, without grumbling. I would have loved Peter to just stop there, just, hey, show hospitality. But he says, no. Like, when you know they're coming over, don't turn to your spouse. Why are we having them over? Okay, that's context for you. Do it without grumbling. Now, Paul's a little bit more direct. Paul just says, practice hospitality. Hey, you just practice hospitality. You make sure that in your life, in your core values, you are seeing those who are out and you are bringing them in. This matters to God. And so today, if you say that God matters to you, you've got to look at his core value of hospitality and say, what am I doing with it? Now, we could close up here, and we could finish, and we would have an okay sermon. We would have this. God says it, and you do it. God says hospitality, and you go out there and you be hospitable to people. God said, you saw him say it to Israel. Peter said it, Paul said it, God values it. You go be hospitable. You know what we'd walk away with? A religion. Because a religion is a set of practices that say, hey, God, look at what I'm doing. You should love me for what I'm doing. You should see, look at this, God. I'm being hospitable. Even to my in-laws, Jesus. I mean, look at this. I am bringing them in. Now you bring me in. You accept me. That's a religion. And what would happen is if we stop here, I got to think in this room we would have some who will try. And if we succeed at this, there's room for us to be filled with pride. Say, look at me. I did it. I brought people in. I started a text group. I had a party. I went out of my way to engage with people who are outside. Look at how great I am. And for others, we might try, and when we fail, be filled with guilt and shame, and we'll start to believe this lie. See, God doesn't love you. You couldn't do it. You're supposed to be hospitable. It's a big word, and you couldn't do it. God does not love you. That's why we can't stop here. 15-minute message would be great, but we got to keep going, okay? You want me to keep going. We want to keep going. Because if we stop, all we get is a God said it, now you do it, and we just can't end there. So listen to the tension. Yes, God values hospitality. And yes, we love when people bring us in. And yet, because we're tired, busy, and don't really like people that much, it's hard for us to be hospitable. So what can change in here so that we might start living out one of God's core values? And I want to share with you a story of a man named Zacchaeus who did not care about hospitality at all. This was not on his to-do list. He didn't go home at night and say, okay, who's on the outside that I've got to bring in? That wasn't what he was thinking about. And yet he had a life-changing moment with Jesus, and he went home that night suddenly caring about hospitality. And there's hope for me and there's hope for you, because what happened to Zacchaeus can happen to us today. And hospitality can become a part of our core values. So let's read this story together. Luke chapter 19, verse 1. He, being Jesus, entered Jericho and was passing through. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector and was rich. Let's just pause for a second. Because as you read the account of Luke, or maybe it's Matthew, Mark, John, people who knew Jesus or knew people who knew Jesus and wrote about Jesus, there is not one other time that we hear this phrase, a chief tax collector. A chief tax collector. This is a big deal because Luke is going out of his way. Remember, this isn't like you just backspace when you don't like the word you use. Okay, this is a first century. You choose your words wisely because they are resources you're going to use. And he makes sure that you and I know, and his audience knows in the first century, when you think of Zacchaeus, he's not just a tax collector. He is a chief tax collector. Now, we got to do some reshaping. Because when we hear tax collector in the first century, these were Jewish people who were on Rome's payroll. Here's how it worked. When Rome was the ruling empire, you had to pay your taxes, but there was no direct deposit. Okay, you would have to go and travel to the tax booth that Rome set up. Now, if you lived in a city where a tax collector lived, that tax collector would open up shop, and to save you on the travel costs, they didn't have Frontier. There was no $59 flights happening. Okay, so to save you on loading up the donkey and going for days' journey to get there and pay, they would say, oh, okay, I will work for Rome, and I will set up a tax booth, but here's the trade-off. You're going to pay me whatever I say, or you can go and travel these dangerous roads to get to where you need to be. And as a chief tax collector, Zacchaeus is a guy who is in charge. He's got leverage. He's got power and authority. And he is extorting all of his fellow Jewish people. They see him as a traitor. There's not one person who's being hospitable to Zacchaeus. He is cast out and he is left out. No one's saying, oh, poor Zacchaeus. He's working for Rome. He's rich. Let's make sure that he gets an invite to the party. They're not thinking that about Zacchaeus. He has been cast out and he's been left out. Okay, and Zacchaeus hears that Jesus is going to pass through and he wants to see him. So look at what Luke writes in verse 3. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was. But on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. Let's pause. I love the description that Luke is giving us of Zacchaeus, okay? So far, he's told us, hey, he's a chief tax collector. Good information. We know what he does. Also, he's got a lot of money. He's rich. That's great. This is good. Where are we going with this? Oh, third thing, he's short. Okay, just want to get that out there. It's like, Luke, what are you doing here? Like, why do I need to know the height of Zacchaeus? He's building up something for us. Now, I'm a product of Sunday school felt board church culture. Okay, so I grew up with the felt board and you just make it all move. And I grew up with some Sunday school songs. And so you might know this one. If you can, go ahead and sing with me. Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. Okay, if you didn't sing, God bless you. You have been spared of those songs, and we are happy for you. I grew up in a lot of these great songs that meant well and taught well. And so as I grew up learning about Zacchaeus, the one fact that always stuck with me was what was in the song. He was a wee little man. He was a short guy. He wanted to see Jesus, but clearly the reason why he could never see Jesus was because he was short. And so he took it into his own hands to climb a tree and get to Jesus. And you know what? I don't know that I think that that's the full reason why he couldn't see Jesus that day. I think his height is important to know for the story, but I don't think his height is the defining reason why he couldn't get to Jesus. And here's why. I'm not that tall. Okay, my brother is tall. Okay, he's the one leading up here. He's tall. He got the height. My other brother's got some height. I like to say average. Okay, I'm 5'8.5". Don't forget the half. Okay, I'm 5'8.5", and my wife's 5 foot. And so we're not the tallest of people, but we love concerts. We love going to shows. We love experiencing concerts. And we have gone to concerts, usually standing room, and we're kind of there in the middle or the back, and we're doing one of these and trying to get into the experience in the concert. And you know what has happened to us often? When someone in front of us or around us sees that the struggle is real for us, our height-challenged people, and we're just kind of up and we're looking around, you know what they kindly do to bring us into the moment? They step out of the way. They ask us, hey, you want to go in front of me? Because you're not blocking me, dude. You just go on out. You're not going to block anyone here. And they'll bring me into the experience by being hospitable in that moment. They see me on the outside and say, you're going to come into this. We're going to move out of your way. Now follow this. Zacchaeus' height was a factor. But you know what a bigger factor was? He was around a crowd that did not value hospitality. He's trying to get to Jesus, and the people are looking at him and saying, this guy doesn't get to Jesus. They all know who he is. That's their town. When they pay taxes, they go to the chief tax collector. And this is their moment where chief tax collector, rich, short guy Zacchaeus finally wants something, and they have the ability to say, no, you don't get in. Sorry, bro, you don't get it. In fact, we're going to watch you climb that tree and laugh at you because it's drafty up there and you're wearing a skirt. Right? You just got a robe on. We're going to watch this. And they look at him. See, the reason why he couldn't get to Jesus was because the crowd refused to be hospitable. That's the big reason why he didn't make it. It was the crowd's refusal that gets in the way. Because they could have stepped aside for him to experience Jesus. They could have said, no, we see you struggling. You want to get in? You're on the outside right now? Okay, there's some things that are stopping you, but we've got a way to make sure you get in to see Jesus because we value hospitality. And so come on through, Zach. We know you've been a bad guy to all of us. In fact, we pretty much hate you. But right now, you want to see Jesus. We're going to make sure you get to discover Jesus. But they don't practice hospitality. And so we read in verse 4 that he climbs this sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see, right? And the song's still going, right? And on that day, Jesus passes by. So Jesus looks at the crowd that has not placed value on hospitality, and yet Jesus places the value on it. Look, verse 5. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. This is a gospel moment that is happening for Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus has been cast out, and maybe you might say, yeah, but he deserved it. And in fact, I got to believe that day the crowd said he deserves to climb a tree. What he made me do and made me pay, you want to get to Jesus? It's not going to be easy for you because of your past, because of your mess, because of your mistakes. You go on and climb that tree and see what happens. And Jesus sees him on the out and practices hospitality. And says, no one else wants to bring you into this, Zach. I got you. Today, I'm going to your house. I'm going to go into a place where no one has gone before in a long time. And who knows the last time Zach had guests over? I think that's why he hurries down. He's like, the dishes are still out. I haven't had guests over in years. This place is not ready for anyone, and Jesus is coming. Jesus didn't care. When was Jesus going to his house? He says, today. He didn't say, hey, Zach, you come down. You fix everything you broke. Okay, you stole from that guy. You cheated that guy. You clean up. You get good. Maybe I'll come in and I'll be with you. No, Jesus says, I'm coming to you as you are. And in this culture, the first century, when you go and eat in another person's house, you are declaring, I accept this person. And for Jesus, a Jewish teacher, to go and eat a meal and share a meal with someone, he's saying, this guy's with me. He's in. I am eating with this guy. Zacchaeus, you are in. I know you were cast out, but hospitality says, I'm going to bring those who are out in. And Zacchaeus has this moment with Jesus that is amazing. Now, notice something. Zacchaeus gets a choice. And what does Zacchaeus do? He receives Jesus joyfully. Because Jesus can go knocking on that tree and say, Zach, I want to go to your house. And Zacchaeus could still say, I don't know, I'm not really a hospitable person. You shouldn't really be around me. You don't know what I've done. We can't be friends. Not yet. Let me think about this. This is a big deal. No, Zacchaeus receives Jesus. There's something there we're going to talk about. Zacchaeus receives Jesus, and Zacchaeus is changed. We see that because once they get to the house, look at what Zacchaeus says. He stood up and said, "Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded," I love that. Zacchaeus, you know you have, right? Throw the if in there. If I have defrauded, if I've stolen anything, I'll restore it. He has. He's a tax collector. His job is built on that. It's built on extorting people. But he goes through a complete transformation. And now what he is doing, don't miss it, he's being hospitable. You know what the law said you had to do? You give 10% of your goods away to the poor. Zacchaeus says, I'm going 50. Forget 10. What Jesus has just done, I'm going above and beyond. You know what the law said? If you stole from someone, you restore it back plus 20%. Zacchaeus says, I'm doing 4 times the amount. Why? Because Zacchaeus has just been shown radical hospitality. Because Jesus came through that day and said, I know you've never been brought in. I'm bringing you in now. You are going to be forever changed. And he grabs onto one of God's core values and says, and now I'm going to bring the poor in, and I'm going to bring those I've hurt in, and everyone's coming into this party. And look at what Jesus says about him. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house. That's a good thing. Today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. He's reminding Zacchaeus of who he is and the crowd of who he is. And when he says son of Abraham, he's not talking racially here. He's talking in the heart. This man, Zacchaeus, remembered something that the Jewish people had forgotten, one of God's core values. They were so excited about being, I'm a son of Abraham. Look at me, I'm Jewish. Look at my race. But he is declaring now, no, you're a son of Abraham because of how you're living. You are treating others with kindness. You are bringing those who are out in. And then Jesus tells us what his mission is. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. Hospitality matters to God, and that is a good thing, because if it didn't, the Son of Man wouldn't have came to bring the outsiders in. I am so thankful. Keith is so thankful that God cares about hospitality, because if God didn't care about bringing the outside in, you know where I am? I'm on the outside. I'm somewhere in a tree trying to get to God with all my good works. Hey, God, look at me. Notice me. Look at what I do. But it was God's hospitality that was initiated in this moment for Zacchaeus, and it's God's hospitality that is made available to you today. We skipped one phrase in there. We skipped the statement that Luke made, verse 7. See, it cost Jesus something to be hospitable. Look what happened. When he goes with Zacchaeus, all the crowd starts complaining. All the crowd is saying, hey, hold on a second. He's gone to be the guest of a man who's a sinner. Do you know what Jesus is losing in this moment? His reputation. They're looking at this Jewish teacher, this rabbi, and it matters who he eats with. And they're saying, could you believe that Jesus guy? He's going to eat with a sinner. He must not be real. A rabbi would never do that. And Jesus is willing to risk his reputation to bring hospitality to Zacchaeus. And today I want you to understand Jesus risked way more than just a reputation to bring you into the Father. The gospel declares that God so loved the world that he gave his son. He acted in hospitality so that whosoever believes, receives Jesus, would find eternal life. That is the gospel for us today. That is why I am so thankful that I serve a hospitable God. That I serve a God who looks at me and says, Keith, you're not staying in the tree. You're not staying on the outside. You are going to be brought in. You have worth. You have value. I know the crowd has cast you out. I know you are messy. I know you are dirty. I know you don't deserve me. But the gospel is that I'm going to bring you in. And today, if we are struggling with hospitality, it's because we haven't realized God has been so hospitable to us. You will not value bringing others in unless you see that Jesus brought you in. You can try all you want to go to the classes to know where to put the cup, where to put the fork, how to love people, how to engage in conversation. But at the heart of it, if you want to be hospitable, if you want the hospitality value that God has, you've got to first see that God was hospitable to you. And it's not because God says so. That's religion. It's because God did so. It is not God who just sits up there and says, hey, Israel, be hospitable. Hey, Paul, Peter, make sure they know to practice hospitality. Peter, could you throw in the part about the complaining? Could you just make sure that happens for them? No. God did way more than just say so. God did so. God loves you. God cares about you. And God went to great lengths to make sure that you would be brought in because you have value and worth. And so today, on this day, in 2018, hospitality still matters to God, and I'm thankful for it. And it has got to matter to those of us who say, God loves me, and I love him, and I'm following him. You know where I don't want to land? I do not want to be part of the crowd that prevents people from discovering Jesus. That's not where I want to land. There's 3 words that sums up who we are as a church. It's discover, connect, and serve. We exist to lead people to discover Jesus, connect with others, and serve the world. And all of that is found in hospitality. That's why we gather every week and make sure that anyone who wants to come in, can discover Jesus. And I do not want to be part of the crowd that says, no, not you. You find your own way. You climb a tree if you want to get to Jesus. No, I want to be the one that says, you want to see Jesus? Here he is. Discover how much he loves you. I do not want to be someone who refuses because I don't want to stop someone. But listen to this promise. Your choice to practice hospitality will lead someone to discover Jesus. There's no way it can't. You start living out a life where you are concerned with those who are on the outside. I know. We all raised our hand. I'm tired. I'm busy. I don't like people. You start realizing that God didn't use any of that to keep you out, and you say, okay, I know. I'm going to engage with this person. I'm going to text them. I'm going to invite them over. I'm going to see how they're doing. I'm going to get coffee with them. And then they're going to ask the question, you had a long week. You sure you still want to do this thing? Yes, I do. Why? Oh, because this is what God did for me. What do you mean? Oh, I was on the outside, and God, through Jesus, brought me in. And I want to spend time with you because you've got to know he loves you. That's the reason why we be hospitable. We've got to let people know that God loves them. They need to discover Jesus. I need to discover Jesus every single day. And so hospitality matters. So, first thing, today in this moment, would you say that you've received Jesus? Maybe you're hearing this, you're saying, you know what, I've never had a moment where I've received Jesus with joy. I've never had a moment where I've realized it took Jesus coming to bring me into the Father. That is a first step that you need to take. You've got to see that you were on the out. You were climbing a tree trying to get to God on your good works. And God says, it's not going to be that way. I'm going to bring you in. Why? Because of this grace-bought heart. This is an issue of grace. God loves you. And so if we want to be hospitable, we first have to embrace the hospitality of our great God. And beyond that, if you'd say today you're a Christ follower, you're living out Jesus' love, then hospitality has to be a part of your life. And you got to let God share with you how that's going to play out. Because I'm not saying everyone who's hospitable is extroverted. We already broke that down at the beginning. Get rid of that definition. The definition is you bring those who are out in, whatever that looks like for you. You don't want to talk to people? Write them a card. Don't want to see your face. Just want to send you this card. You know you. Don't want to see you? I'm just going to text you. Just seeing how you are. That's it. I'm going to have him over today. Just so you know, I don't have grass. We could play in my rocks, okay? But want to be with you. You know what it is for you. But you can't just say hospitality is an extrovert's game. Hospitality is their thing. I'm run down. No, you are a child of God. You've got to let people who are outside in. They have to know. And that's why we've been gearing up all month for group launch in September. That's why for the past 3 weeks, you've been filling out cards saying, I'm interested in a group. I want to be in. I want to join someone. And I'm so excited because today you can go on our website when you leave, truthcommunity.org/groups, and you can see we have 4 groups that are launching in September. And look, when we chose these homes and these people, we didn't sit back and say, who's the most extroverted person? Who's got the HGTV house? Okay, that's not it. We said, who here wants to be hospitable? Who here would bring others who are out into their home? And they went through 10 weeks of group host training so that they can provide a space where you can discover Jesus every week in someone's home. And so when you leave today, you're going to get a card that lists out the group name and the date and time and the person who's doing it and the location. And when you get home, on your phone, wherever, you can go on the website and you can sign up today for something that starts in September. But we're doing this because hospitality matters, because you and I need to be brought in. And so we prepared a little video we want to show you of what groups look like. The band's going to come up, and we're going to close out with one song as we respond and reflect. But this is my home, so no one throw rocks at it. It's not HGTV, okay? But this is just where my home, we did group hosts in our home. But take a look at what the group looks like and practice hospitality this week.